Hello and welcome to Easy High School Math. Today we're going to solve the part 3, the no calculator section of the practice test number 1 from CollegeBoard. All right. Okay, so let's get started. So again, this is a no calculator section. Frankly, if you understand the tricks and the methods that we're going to be using to solve them, you won't need to use calculators. It might even be quicker not to use a calculator. Okay, so let's get started. So question number 1. So it says, if x minus 1, the whole thing over 3 is equal to k and k is equal to 3, what is the value of x? Okay, so naturally, the one thing that we want to do is just take the k and then replace it in that other equation, right? Because it tells us that k is equal to 3. So I'm going to rewrite it with k equals to 3. So it's x minus 1 over 3 equals 3. All right, so the one rule that I'm going to keep reminding you of over and over is the cross multiplication. Okay, cross multiplication is gold, okay, when it comes to solving questions or equations with fractions in them. Okay, so the way you do cross multiplication is if you have a over b is equal to c over d, then you can multiply them like that. So a goes to d, then that product is equal to b into c. Okay, so that is the cross multiplication. Okay, but you do that when you have an equation with at least one fraction in them. Okay, so what happens when you don't have both terms or both things on both sides of the equation to be fractions? Well, what you should also know is that any number can be written in a form of a fraction. So 5 can always be written as 5 over 1. Okay, so we can write 3 as 3 over 1. So now we need to multiply this with that, and this has to go with that in a form of a cross, like that. Okay, now because there's more than just one item in there, I'm going to put it in parentheses like that, and then so multiply it by 1 and it will be 3 times 3. So that gives me x minus 1 is equal to 9. I add 1 on both sides, then I get 10. At the end, you want to make sure that you are answering the question. Okay, so here they're asking you what is the value of x. They could well be asking you what is the value of x plus 3. So you want to be careful at the end when you get x. X is not always the answer. Okay, the answer could be something else. So just make sure you check that. Okay, so in this case, x is 10. X is what we're looking for. So the answer is D. Okay, so now we've explained it. I'm going to just go back and do what we did just quicker. Okay, just to see if you can understand, because there's also time involved in this thing. Okay, so we already know that the answer is D. Okay, so let's get started. So x minus 1 is equal to, over 3 is equal to k. K is equal to 3. So right away we can write this. Then we do the cross multiplication. So it will be x minus 1 times 1 is equal to 3 times 3, which is 9. So we add 1 on both sides. We get x is equal to 9 plus 1, which is 10. So in a few seconds, we're able to get the answer to that. All right, so let's move on to question number 2. So question number 2 is dealing with complex numbers. Okay, so complex numbers are numbers that are written in this form, a plus bi, where a is the real part of the number, and then there's bi, which is the complex part of the number. Okay, I being the imaginary number that allows us to write complex numbers. Okay, so here all we have to do is find the sum of this complex number and this complex number. The way to do that is to combine like terms in the real numbers and then combine like terms in the complex parts of them. So here I'm going to highlight them to show which ones are which numbers are like numbers, and then I'm going to use a different color to show that these two can also be combined. All right, so 7 and then -8 would give me -1. Okay, so right away, so I want you to also develop this tactic, which is looking at the answers to kind of cross out some of the answers, okay, as you become a bit more familiar with the math portion of it. So here we can right away say that C and D are not the answer, right? The answer has to have -1 in them, so it's not C, it's not D, it's either A or B. So -1, and then we have 3i and 9i, which will give us 12i. So the answer is A. Okay, let's jump on to question number 3. Question number 3 says, on Saturday afternoon, Armand sent M text messages each hour for 5 hours, and Tyrone sent P messages each hour for 4 hours. Then he says, which of the following represents the total number of messages sent by Armand and Tyrone on Saturday afternoon? So we want the total number. Okay, that's one of that's the most important word here, total number. So we're looking for some sort of a sum. Okay, so now let's see how many messages did Armand send. So he's sending M each hour. So for 5 hours, it's M plus M, or plus M plus M 5 times, or 5 times M. So 5 M's for A. And then for Tyrone T, it's 4 hours times P. Okay, so the sum is 5M plus 4P. You want to make sure to keep track of this can be confusing is if you ended up picking answer number D instead of answer number C, right? So you want to make sure you keep track of this, right? Right away I can see that this has M in it, so M goes with Armand and it's 5 hours, so 5 goes with M, so 5M, and then P goes with 4, Tyrone, so 4P. Okay, so the answer is C. Okay, so 4. So it says, Kathy is a repair technician for a phone company. Well, I need to find out where Kathy lives because my phone is not the best. Each week, she receives a batch of phones that need repairs. The number of phones that she has left to fix at the end of each day can be estimated with the equation P equals to 108 minus 23D, where P is the number of phones left, right? Left, and D is the number of days she has worked that week. Okay, now it says, what is the meaning of the value 108 in this equation? So let's just try to understand the equation a little bit more. So P is, if you want to find the number of phones that are left at the end of the week, you use P and then you put D, the number of days in it. And notice how there's a negative sign here, there's minus, which makes sense because the number of phones has to go down each time, right? Otherwise, I don't want to go to Kathy because she's not, if she can't get the number of phones to go down, that means she's not working, right? Unless there's more phones coming in. Okay, anyway, so now 108, we can right away kind of, based on that explanation and the fact that we understand the formula, we can deduct that the 108 represents the number of phones that Kathy starts with, because we're subtracting a certain number each day, and here it's 23 that we're subtracting each day, right? So if you read them, we want to see which one says that. The first one says Kathy will complete the repairs within 108 days. Nope. Kathy starts each week with 108 phones to start. Yes, right? Yes. So that is the answer. Let's just continue to make sure we understand why they can't be C or D. It says Kathy repairs phones at a rate of 108 per hour. Well, not at all, right? Well, first of all, it's talking about days, and 23 would be the rate, right? As a slope. So not C. And then D says Kathy repairs phones at a rate of 108 per day. Well, 108 is not the rate here, right? 108 is the number of phones that Kathy starts with. All right, so that's 4. So let's go to 5. So 5 is as simple as, well, by looking at the problem without reading it, it's as simple as combining like terms, right? But let's read. It says, which of the following is equivalent to the expression above? So we just have to apply the negative, subtract everything, and then combine like terms, and we should get the answer. All right, so let's get started. So you want to, well, take it easy. So if you do things properly, you don't have to go at a super speed. It just works out, and there's plenty of time. Okay, so what you have to do is just rewrite it like this, and then make this go in, right? The negative is gonna change the sign of everything, so I'm just gonna write it at the bottom, okay, because I don't have space on that side. So it would be, this will become positive like that. Then I have this, which is my negative now, xy squared. Then I have that, which is positive now, so it's 3y squared. So now let's see what we can combine. We can combine these two, they're like terms, and it looks like that's the only term with x squared and y. Again, we can already look at the answers and see that we can cross out that and that, because the answer needs to have 2x squared y. Let's keep going. So now let's change this highlighter and show how we can also combine this and that, but they're opposite signs, so they cancel out. So the answer does not have y squared in it. So right away, we know that it cannot be this guy. Okay, so right away, the answer has to be this guy. But let's just see if we get 2xy squared, because we also want to be sure of ourselves. So let's see. So we have 5 here of xy squared and -3 of the same term. So 5 minus 3 is 2. So yes, the answer is 2x squared y plus 2xy squared. Okay, let's jump to question number 6. Question number 6 says h is equal to 3a plus 28.6. A pediatrician uses the model above to estimate the height h of a boy in inches in terms of the boy's age a in years between the ages of 2 and 5. Okay, so if you want to find the height of a boy that is between 2 and 5, that's the formula that you use. A is the age of the boy, okay, in years. It's important that you understand when you read it, take 5 extra seconds to try to understand what you just read, because the English portion of it is even more important. Now, based on the model, what is the estimated increase in inches of a boy's height each year? So what is the increase each year? Okay, so there's 2 ways you could do this, and I want to show you both ways of doing it. So first, you can just look at the formula, right, and say, well, this is a constant here. That's not a rate, that's a constant. It's talking about a rate of change. Well, if you look at it's talking about an increase, right, each year. So which is like a rate. What is the increase each year, right? That's a rate. So if you understand the concept of slope or the rate of change, you can right away by looking at the formula, or if I write the equation of a line, mx plus b, so if this is the variable, in this case a is the variable, 3 would be the rate of change, which is the slope. So the answer would be this, right? So without doing anything, if you understand the concept of rate of change, you know, because the way the question is asked is asking the rate of change, right? It says, what is the estimated increase each year, right? So what is the increase each year? So this year there's that increase, that year there's that increase, okay? Okay, so let's say you don't know the concept of, you're not too familiar with the concept of rate of change. How would you solve this, right? You would just kind of use numbers. Okay, so let's say if the boy is 1, right, what would the height be according to the formula? So it would be 3 times 1 plus 28.6. How about if the boy is 2? So it will be that. So let's see what is the increase here, right? So we can already see that these are constants, so that's not where the increase happens. So the increase happens here, okay? Or we can just go ahead and write what that is. So the first one is 3 plus 28.6. I don't even need to add it, right? And then the second one is 6 plus 28 plus 6. So how do I go from this to this? I need to add 3, right? So each year, and if you did the third year, you would have 3 times 3 plus 28.6, which will be 9 plus 28.6. So again, this being constant, you're adding 3 each year. Okay, so you could do it like that too. There's always ways of figuring out problems if you don't understand, if you can't do it quickly. Okay, all right, so that solves question number 7. Let's go to that's question number 6. Now we go to question number 7. Okay, so it says the formula above, I'm not even gonna attempt to read it, it's too complicated to read it. I'll give you a secret. Questions are not meant to be complicated, okay? So if the formula is that crazy, that means there's a way around it, right? You don't need to, this is not third year of you know, pure mathematics or something, okay? So it's simple, it's meant to be simple, okay? All right, so it says the formula above gives the monthly payment M needed to pay off a loan P in dollars or at R% annual interest over N months. All that is describing the formula. We don't even need to know what the formula is or how the formula works. So it says, which of the following gives P in terms of M, R, and uppercase N? That's the most important part of the question. So what is this asking? You can, if you don't understand, you can also look at the answers, okay? That's one way of knowing what the problem is asking. If you look at the answers, you can see that the answers are all finding P. So all we have to do is find P. Okay, all right. And then comes back my gold, which is the cross multiplication. Now, let's look at the formula as it's written. So if I just replace this whole thing on top, let me meant to use a pencil there. So this by A, okay? You don't have to replace it, because you might be asking yourself, wait, what? How do I know that I needed to replace it? I'm just doing that to explain a point to you. You'll see you won't need to replace it with A or B. Okay, I just don't want to rewrite the whole thing. But so it will give me M is equal to A over P over B times P, or P, like that. So, well, first you have to know simple multiplication. So if I have something like this, the way to do it is that A is with P. You agree? A is with P. In other words, it's M over 1, any number can be over 1, is equal to AP over B. So when I do my cross multiplication, M has to always go with B, and AP has to always go with 1. Okay? So in other words, A always goes with P, and M always goes with B. All you have to do is look at all the other formulas where that rule is maintained. Okay, it doesn't matter how I write the equation. If I use cross multiplication, it doesn't matter how I turn the fractions. Like if I have A over B is equal to C over D, this means that if I do cross multiplication, which goes this way, I would have A and D equals B and C. Okay, if I write it this way, B over A equals D over C, if I cross multiply, look how I still end up with B with C and A with D. Okay, so A goes with D and B with C. So it doesn't matter how it's written. When you do the cross multiplication, the items that would end up together will keep ending up together. So now that we understand that concept, let's go back to the problem. Okay, that was just to explain the concept. So how do we do this? So M would always end up with this guy here, okay? And P would always end up with this guy here, the numerator. So let's look at the formulas. Well, right away we can see that there's no way the answers are gonna be those two, you know? We can just cross out those quickly, because, you know, look at this complicated formula and look at that. It's not like we can simplify things, right? We can't, because there's the -1 there, so we can't simplify it. So right away you can cross out these two. If there wasn't a -1, -1 over there, then that's a different story. We could simplify things, and then, you know, the answers would be different. But now, since we know that we can't simplify, we can cross out C and D. All right, now we said M has to go with this, right? It doesn't matter how it's written. So let's look at this. If you apply the cross multiplication here, P would end up with this, which is not what we said needed to happen. M is the one that needed to end up with this. And then this guy on top would end up with the P, right? Because the P here goes with this, right? So this doesn't work. But this would have to be the answer, because look what's happening. P would end up with this, and then M would, well, there's a 1 here, right? So 1 times this guy, so M would end up with this, right? So M would end up with 1 plus R over this minus 1 equals P times the stuff at the denominator, which is the same thing that would happen if we do the cross multiplication there. So we do not have to do anything. How did I know to use that? I have an equation, I have at least one fraction. When you have that, think about cross multiplication, okay? If it doesn't work, at least in like maybe almost 100% of cases, cross multiplication would work, okay? So do that, okay? All right, so let's jump to the next question here, which is question number 8. So question number 8 has a over b. It says if a over b is 2, what is the value of 4 times b over a? Okay, so the first thing to realize or to notice, right, what jumps at me and should hopefully jump at you is you have a over b here, and then you have b over a here. Well, it looks like an inverse, right? A reciprocal is happening there. So let's rewrite this to separate the b over a from the 4. So 4b over a is equal to 4 times b over a. Agree? Now, if a over b is 2, if it gives us this, that means we have to kind of use it in the next stuff, right? So if a over b is that means b over a, which is the reciprocal, is the inverse, or 1 over 2. By the way, this is 2 over 1, so if you flip it, you're flipping that as well. So we could just put this here in here, okay, because that's b over a. So it would give us 4b over a would give us 4 times 1/2, which is 2. So our answer is 2, which is C, okay? Okay, so let's go to the next one, which is question number, I moved it a little bit, I didn't want to move it. Okay, so question number 9. So this is a system of equations. By looking at it, I already know what it is, right? So I have 2 equations with 2 variables. It's asking me to solve the system. So there's 2 ways that you would want to use every time you have a system of equations to solve. There's the substitution method, and there's also the elimination method. Now, one is always better than the other based on the type of questions that you have. I'm going to give you a few tricks to know, and these tricks would always work. And how do you know when to use what, right? They would always work. One is just longer than the other, right? Okay. The trick is if things are placed in this form where the 2 variables are on one side of the equation, okay, for both equations, then you want to use elimination. Okay, let me repeat it. So if you have 3x minus y equals something, 7, then you have 5x plus 3y equals 1. You have both variables on the left side and both variables on the left side of the first and second equations. So you want to use the elimination method. Now, let's say you have, instead of that, you have like something like this where the first equation already has one variable in terms of the other. Okay, so you have something like this. This is your system. So in this case over here, you want to use substitution. Okay, y is already given, and you can just plug that in here and you're pretty much done. Okay, so that's my trick on how to determine which equation to use. Okay, so based on that, we know that we want to use elimination here. But the first thing you want to do when you have questions like this is you want to make sure that things are aligned, that the x's are aligned, right, are under each other, or one is on top of the other, and that the y's are aligned also, which is not the case here. So you have to rewrite it like this. So I'm keeping the first equation as is. Let me kind of reduce this. I zoomed in, so it's a bit too heavy. Oops. Okay, so I think I might have done it too much. Well, I guess that's fine. So negative x plus 2y. Now I switch them so that x can be under x and y can be under y. So is equal to negative 19. All right, so how do I eliminate? So I have to multiply. Well, I can choose to eliminate x, or I can choose to eliminate y. So because I'm being asked to find both x and y, it doesn't matter which one I eliminate. I just have to see which one is easier, which multiplication would be easier for me. Okay, but if sometimes you're asked to find just x, in that case, you want to eliminate y. Okay, so you're left with the x's, or you can be asked to find y, in which case you want to eliminate the x. Okay, but here, if I choose to eliminate x, I'll have to multiply by 3. I don't want to multiply negative 19 by 3, even though it's negative 57. I know it, but I recommend that you do the easy stuff. So here, I can just multiply by negative 2. Okay, well, some people may feel like negative numbers are harder for them, so go ahead and multiply by 2, okay, or by 3, whatever works for you. So if I multiply by negative 2, I'm canceling the y's because I would get negative 4y here. So let me rewrite both equations again. So I get 3x plus 4y equals negative 23, and then I get 2x minus 4y is equal to 38. Okay, so then I add them, and then I get 5x is equal to 15. 38 minus 23 is 15. I divide by 5, and then I get x is equal to 3. I jump here, and I see that I can already cancel out these 3 because b is the only answer with x equals to 3. But just to check and be completely sure, I can go back and plug in x in this equation here. That seems to be the easiest. So I go 2y minus 3 is equal to negative 19. I add 3 on both sides. I get 2y is equal to negative 16. I divide by 2, and then I get y is equal to negative 8. So I was right that the answer is B. Okay, you want to do that last step just to be sure of yourself. It takes you 10 more seconds, unless you're like at the end of the time period given to you, and you really have no time to check. Okay, question number 10. So g of x is equal to ax squared plus 24. Okay, so it says for the function g defined above, a is a constant and g of 4 is equal to 8. Now, what is the value of g of negative 4? There are two ways you can do this. I'm going to show them both to you. So first, you can look at the function and realize that the function is even, because the only variable in the function is squared. It has an even exponent. So it is an even function, and if you have an even function, if f of x is even, then f of negative x is equal to f of x. Okay, by the way, if f of x is odd, then f of negative x is equal to f of x. Negative f of x. My apologies. Okay, so for even, it doesn't change, and then for odd, it changes into the opposite. Okay, all right, so here you can realize that the function is even, which means that g of negative 4 is equal to g of 4, which is equal to 8. And your answer is A. Or say you don't remember the even stuff, which you don't have to get the answer right. You just have to be a bit quicker in the sense that there's a bit more work to do. So what you would do, like what comes to you naturally, right? Like you look at this question, because a lot of the questions that I get in my tutoring is, how do I even know how to start? Well, just do what the question tells you to do. Okay, by the way, if you have any questions at all, or you're interested in one-on-one tutoring, or you want to take more tests or practice tests, I make my own practice tests. Make sure to email me at easyhighschoolmath@gmail.com. Okay, so it's easyhighschoolmath@gmail.com. It's one word. Okay, email me with your comments, with your questions, and I would do my best to respond right away. Okay, so back here, so what comes to me directly is that g of 4 is equal to 8. Okay, so let me plug that in and see what I get. So 8, so g of 4 is equal to a 4 squared plus 24 is 8. Okay, so I get 16, so 16a plus 24 is 8. Okay, now I subtract the 24 from both sides and I get negative 16. So 16a is equal to negative 16, which means that a is equal to negative 1 if I just divide by negative 16. Then I can rewrite my function as, so this function is now defined as a is negative 1, so it's negative, I don't have to write the 1, so negative x squared plus 24. Okay, so now I can find g of negative 4, correct? Because I know the function. So what is g of negative 4? So g of negative 4 is equal to negative of negative 4 squared. Okay, I just plugged in the negative 4 in the equation, into the equation, so I get this. Then I get negative, but negative 4 times negative 4 is 16, positive 16. But I had this negative sign here that I bring down. Then I add my 24, which again gives me the 8. Okay, so either way you can get the right answer. All right, so let's jump on to question number 11. So 11 says b is equal to 2.35 plus 0.25x, and c is equal to 1.75 plus 0.40x. In the equations above, b and c represent the price per pound in dollars of beef and chicken respectively. So b is the price of beef, c is the price of chicken. So in terms of x weeks, right? So it's in terms of x, and x is the number of weeks, right? After July 1st, during last summer, so it kind of goes up. Now it says, what was the price per pound? What was the price per pound of beef when it was equal to the price per pound of chicken? This is where it gets interesting. It says, when was that price when it was equal? Again, the problem tells me what to do. So I'm just going to make them equal. So 2.35 plus 0.25x is equal to 1.75 plus 0.4x. Okay, Then I subtract. I keep the x's. I can keep them on the left side, so they on the right side, so they can be positive. Okay, doesn't really matter. And then I subtract 1.75 both sides. Okay, you could do it one by one if it gets confusing to you. But here, this will cancel, that will cancel. So I have these two, which gives me 0.6, 0.60 or 0.6, right? Then I get this, which gives me 0.15. Then I can divide by 0.15. Okay, so if I divide the decimal numbers, all I have to do is keep multiplying by 10 until multiplying everything by 10 or hundreds or multiple of 10 until I have no decimal point in the numbers. So here I can multiply top and bottom by 10. So it's as if I'm dividing 60 by 15, which is easier to divide, and the answer is 4. Again, I wasn't asked to find x, right? It doesn't say find x. It says what was the price of something, of beef. So this. By the way, the price of beef would have to be equal to the price of chicken, right? That's how I'm able to get x to find the price even, right? So I can use any of these two equations and just plug in 4. Okay. If you have time, something like this, you want to maybe even check it at the end, right? If you're at the end, you have time, sure. Okay, so I recommend you have your own technique, but I recommend that you have a way of signaling to yourself which questions you didn't do at all and which questions you want to come back to, right? So, so here, for example, I can say, oops, I don't know what to do at all, a question mark. And then I can circle it and say, oh, if I have time, let me just come back to that question and do it. You want to answer every single question, okay? You want to, give your best guess and answer every single question on the SAT, okay? Okay, on the SAT subject, that's a different story, and if you have questions on that, email me and we can discuss that separately. Okay, so let's plug in 4 and see what we get. So if I plug in 4, it's going to give me, B is going to give me 2.35 plus 0.25 times 4. This here is going to give me 1 plus that, so it'll give me 3.35, which is D. So my answer is D. Okay. All right, so let's move on to question number 12. Question number 12 says, a line in the XY plane passes through the origin and has a slope of 1/7. All right, there's one important thing that a lot of kids that I work with don't know how to do, and I want to make sure that you know how to do questions like this. So it says, or that you understand this concept. It says that the line passes through the origin. What does that mean? That means that the B or the y-intercept is 0. Okay, so if you have the slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b, that means b is equal to 0. Okay, because it passes through the origin. So if I sketch it, the line would have to look like that. So right away, from knowing that concept, I can write the equation of this line. So this line, the slope is given to me here. So I can write the line as 1/7 of x. Okay, easy. So from that point, all I have to do is just check these points and see if that's the easiest way to do it, right? To see if they work, okay? And it's really, really fast. So you plug in 0, anything multiplies by 0 is 0, and I don't have 0 for y, though that doesn't work. I plug in 1. If I plug in 1, 1/7 times 1 is 1/7. Any number times 1 is that number, but it tells me 7, so that's not the answer. Now 7 times 1/7 is going to be 7/7, which is 1. So that doesn't work, right? Because this is 7/7. That doesn't work. Now, if you plug in 14, let me actually write this one. So it would be 1/7 times 14, which is 14/7, which is 2, which is exactly what the y-intercept is. So the answer is D. Okay. All right. So now we go to question number 13. Question number 13, which is says if x is greater than 3, which of the following is equivalent to that? 1 over x plus 2 plus 1 over x plus 3. Okay, so what you want to do here is just manipulate that fraction so that it becomes just a simple fraction. Okay, so what I want to do, or what you should do, is first do the stuff at the denominator. Okay, forget the numerator, because if you end up with 1 over 3/2, this is just 2/3, right? 1 over a fraction is just asking you to flip the fraction. Okay, remember that. So whatever answer we get, we can just flip it, and then that's our answer. Okay. All right. So again, so let me write it here if you don't know it. So 1 over a over b is just b over a. Okay. Keep, change, flip if you know that. So I keep the 1, I change the division into multiplication, I flip like this, and then it will give me b over a. But more than that, I want you to know this basic rule. Okay, 1 over a fraction, the inverse of a fraction is the fraction flipped. Okay. Okay, so now let's do this. So so I need to multiply. So the common denominator will be x plus 2 times x plus 3. So I need to multiply the first one by x plus 3, top and bottom, to get the same denominator, right? So x plus 3 over x plus 2, x plus 3, right? So like that. Then I add x plus 2, and then x plus 2, x plus 3. Okay. I multiplied this first one by x plus 3 divided by x plus 3, right? So let me show you what I multiplied over here. And then here I multiplied it by this, because I already had x plus 3. So I can add it now, so it will give me x plus 3 plus x plus 2 over x plus 2 times x plus 3. Okay, so remember, all we have to do is flip it, right, when we're done. So it will be x plus 2 times x plus 3. So I'm flipping it, so this becomes the numerator. And then I have 2x plus 5. So 2x plus 5. Okay, you can look at these answers and know you don't even have to expand the numerator, and know that this is not the answer, right? That's not the answer. There's something missing. Now, these two are similar, except they're like reciprocals. So, but the 2 plus 5 has to be at the denominator. So it's not this, it's this. Why? Because we have the inverse over here, right? If you want to feel comfortable, you want to just expand this just to make sure, okay? So you can use the table form, or you can just expand it. So x and x, x squared, x and 3, 3x, x2 and x, 2x, and then 2 and 3, 6. So these will be 5x. So I have x squared plus 5x plus 6, which is that. So the answer is B. All right, now let's do 14. Question number 14 says, if 3x minus y is equal to 12, okay, so it says if that, so that means at one point we have to use that, okay, or we may use that, I should say. So what is the value of 8 to the x power over 2 to the y power? Okay, so when you have exponential expressions, the one way that to manipulate them is to have the same base. Okay, so you can have different exponents, but you want to have the same base, okay, to be able to manipulate them. So here we have base 8 on top and base 2 at the denominator, so there's no way to manipulate them. Now, you want to always convert the larger base into the smaller base, okay? That's what you want to do. So what is 8 in terms of 2? So 8 can be written as 2 cubed. You want to write it as an exponent, right? So if I rewrite that, I get 2 cubed to the x power, right? Because the 2 cubed is 8 over 2 to the y power. Now, if you know your exponential rules, that becomes 3x, right? So if you have 3a, the whole thing to the b power, it'll be 3ab. You can multiply them, right? 3ab, and then so this over 2 to the y power. Now the second rule is that if you have 3 to the a power, for example, over 3 to the b power, then you subtract the exponent, right? So you have the same base, you have a fraction, so you can subtract the exponent. So here I can subtract the exponent. So the answer is 3x minus b minus y. Haha. And this here is that. So we can replace this with 12. This 12. So this is equal to 2 to the 12th power, which happens to be one of the answers. So the answer is A. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So let's jump on to question 15. This is the last question that has, the first 15 questions have multiple choices to choose from. So this is the last one. And then we have the next 5 where you have to do the work yourself to get to the answer. Okay, so now it says this is one of my favorite questions here. I zoomed out, not sure what happened there. Okay, so it went back. I wanted to just zoom in and erase this here. Okay, so if ax plus 2 times bx plus 7 is equal to 15x squared plus cx plus 14 for all values of x, and a plus b is equal to 8, what are the 2 possible values of c? Okay, again, this is like one of my favorite questions. So what you should realize is that if I write a over b is equal to 3 over b, well, I have 2 fractions that are very similar. I have b here at the denominator and b here at the denominator. The only way these 2 fractions will be equal is if the numerator is also equal to the numerator over there. So a is equal to 3. Okay. So again, so if we have ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to dx squared plus ex plus f, Well, the only way these are going to be equal is if the like terms, the coefficients of the like term, or the like terms are the same, therefore their coefficients are the same. So here, so 8x would have to be 8x, and then let me just use a different, so bx would have to be ex. Okay, it's lagging a little bit. And then the last one is that C is equal to F. Okay. So for that to happen, since x squared is already x squared here, so A has to be D. And then I already have x here, I have x here. So B has to be E, etc. Right? And then C has to be F. Okay, so it makes sense. So first, let me write this in the other form, in the standard form, and then compare them like I just did. So I would get 8x and bx. It'll give me abx squared, right? Then I have 8x and 7. So I have 7 8x. Then I have 2 and bx. So 2bx. Then I have 2 and 7, which is 14. So I'm going to write this at the bottom of it so I can compare. So I have cx and then I have 14. Well, you can see that the 14s are already equal. So there we have nothing else to do. But here, AB has to be 15, right? So we can just write AB is equal to 15. Okay, and we're interested in AB, so we can just, use that with the other equation that is given to us to find our answer. Okay, so AB is 15 and A plus B is 8. Okay, now it says that well, AB is 15. Well, if AB is 15, what are the possible ways that AB can be 15? So let's find the multiples of 15. So the multiples of 15s are 3, 5, right? Well, there's 5, 3, which is the same. And then there's 15 and 1, 1 and 15. Okay? But the only pair that gives us 8 is 3 and 5. Okay, so you can solve it that way, or you can just kind of take A in terms of B and plug it in here and then solve the quadratic equation that you get. But that could complicate it for you, but either way, both answers work. So here I have A could be 3. If that's the case, B would have to be 5, or A could be 5. And in that case, B has to be 3 to be equal to 8. Okay. All right. Now, what is the question? It says, what are the two possible values of C? So C is what I want. Okay. That's what we need to determine. So C. Now, so here, what we didn't do is that this here has to be equal to this here. Okay. In other terms, C is equal to 7A plus 2B, because I already have the X. So this plus this would have to be my C. Okay. So now let's take this first one and see what C is in that case. So it will be 7 times 3 plus 2 times 5. The first one is 21. The second one is 10. So it's 31. Now, if we go to here, let me use green to differentiate between the two. So I have 7 times 5. A is 5. And then B is 3. So this is 35 plus 6 is 41. So my two answers will be 31 and 41. Those are the two possible choices. Okay. All right, so now we have 5 more questions. This is the end. You can see there's nothing else. So here you have to, this is the last page. Here you have to show your work, right? All right, so let's do the first one. So it says if t is greater than 0 and t squared minus 4 is equal to 0, what is the value of t? Okay, now one mistake that people do in general solving these equations, which by the way doesn't affect the answer here, is that when people have that, they would just add 4 on both sides, which is the right thing to do, or a right thing to do. T squared is equal to 4, but then they would say, well, t is 2 then. Well, which is not exactly correct, right? That answer is not wrong, but that's not the only answer. So if you have this, the way to get to the answer, or the way you got to the answer, is taking the square root of it. Now, a simple rule, if you are one of the people that forgets, is that if you're the one taking the square root, then you must have plus or minus. Okay? So technically the answer is plus or minus 2, except t is greater than 0. So because t is greater than 0, we cannot choose the negative value. So t is equal to 2, which is the one we're gonna box out. All right, now next question, which is question number 16. It's actually the one on top. I opened that accidentally. So, well, no, question 17, which is this one actually. So it says, a summer camp counselor wants to find a length x. So x is here, right? So x is here in feet across a lake as represented in the sketch above. So instead of just going in the lake and measure, they use their knowledge of geometry. So it says the length represented by A, B, E, B, B, D, and C, D on the sketch were determined to be 1800 feet, right? So AB is in 1800 feet. So I'm going to write those on the sketch. I'm going to be careful so I don't make mistakes. So AB is here, so 1800. Then I have 1400. The second one is EB, 1400. Then I have the third one, BD, as 700. Then I have the last one, which is CD, here as 800. Okay? Now, it says we're looking for what is the value of x. Okay. Now, the one thing that when you look at these problems, every time you see a sketch like this, like that, or a sketch like the one that we have, it's usually gonna be some sort of a proportion, and it's either going to tell you that you have two similar triangles, or it's gonna show you things that allow you to know that you have similar triangles. So here it tells you that these angles have the same measures, okay, which are the angles that are here. So that angle and this angle. So those angles have the same measure. So what that tells you is that you have similar triangles. How do we know that? Is that this angle and that angle are vertical angles, which means that they're congruent. And to prove that you have similar triangles, you just need two angles, right? Two pairs of angles to be equal. So a similarity. Okay, but again, a lot of times the problem is already it already has in it that the triangles are similar. Okay, so you don't have to really waste time determining if they're similar or not. If you can sense that they're similar, then you don't have to prove it yourself. Okay, so what you have to do is knowing how to apply the proportion the right way. So you have to find corresponding sides. Now, this side corresponds to this one. How do we know that? That side is in between this angle and the green angle. So the only side that is between that is these two. Okay. So we have the 700 BD corresponds to the 1400. And then, well, clearly this guy corresponds to this guy. Okay, so we can just write our equation, our proportion, as 700 over 1400 is equal to 800 over x. Cross multiplication here again. Okay, you can use cross multiplication, or you can also just realize that to get from 700 to 1400, you have to multiply by 2. So to get from 800 to x, you also need to multiply by 2 to keep the ratio. So x would have to be 1600. Okay, either that, or you can just cross multiply. 700x is equal to 800 times 1400. Then you divide by 700. This is going to give you 2. So you divide it by 700. So x is going to be 800 times 2, which is the 1600 that we got here. Just remember to, be careful. All right. And you want to check, you want to always box your answers also, right? Okay, so question number 18. So here on question number 20, I need to just erase this. This was to explain the one we just finished. Okay, it's a bit slow. Okay, here it is. So I erased it. Now I go back to the regular pen. So here, 3 more questions. So it says, again, we have 2 equations, so a system of 2 equations that we have to solve. Based on what we described before, we have to use the elimination here. And look how it's only asking us for x. So you want to eliminate y, because if you do that, you're gonna be left with x. You don't have to plug anything back in. You're done, right? So here, I'm gonna multiply this by -2 because I have 2 positive 2y, so I need -2y here to cancel it out. So the equation becomes -2x minus 2y equals positive 18. Okay, so negative times negative is positive. Then the second equation was this one. So I get, so these here cancel out. So I get -x, right? So -x from these is equal to -7. So I divide by -1 from both sides. Then I get x to be 7. Okay, so that is my answer. Then I go to question number 19. So question number 19 says, in a right triangle, one angle measures x degrees where sine x is equal to 4/5. What is cosine of 90 minus x? Okay, what kind of pulls me into knowing what to do is this x here and the 90 minus x. Okay, so if you look at those 2 angles, if you add them, so if you add those 2 angles, okay, I'll go back to green. So x plus 90 minus x, you get this to cancel out with that, so you get 90. So the 2 angles add up to 90. And then it says in a right triangle. So I have a right triangle. Well, it's definitely not the right triangle, right? Because it's one of the other 2. So if this is the x this here must be the other angle. Okay. Now, one of the things that you have to know if you don't know it already is that if two angles add up to 90 degrees, then sine of one is equal to cosine of the other. And cosine of the first one is equal to sine of the second. Okay. So if this is x and this is y, you have sine of x is equal to cosine of y, and then cosine of x is equal to sine of x, sine of y. Okay. Sine of one is just cosine of the other, and vice versa, right? So you can see that here it's sine of one, and then they're asking us the cosine of the other. So the answer is as simple as forfeits. Okay. So cosine of 90 minus x is equal to forfeits. Very easy question if you know what to do. If you don't know what to do, it could be very confusing also. All right, question 20. This is the last question. Well, thank you for watching the video till the end. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. Add comments in the comment section. As I'll make sure to reply to the comments. If you want to get to me directly, email me at easyhighschoolmath@gmail.com, right? For all questions, if you have questions on these specific things, if you want us to discuss other things, or if you need a one-on-one session in preparation for your SAT, make sure to reach out to me directly. Okay, so it says if a is equal to this and 2a is equal to square root of 2x, what is the value of x? Okay, so a is equal to this, so I can just plug it into that. So it's 2 times 5 square root of 2 is equal to square root of 2x. You agree? So now if this goes in, it gives me 10 square root of 2. Okay, is equal to square root of 2x. Okay, one way to get rid of square root is to square them. So I can just square everything. Then I get 100, and then the square root of 2 squared is 2. Okay, so if I do square root of a squared, it's just a, because the square root and the square would cancel themselves out. So is equal to, here, let's make sure that I write this correctly. So the 2x is under the square root, so it'll just be 2x. Okay, makes sense? It'll just be 2x. So I can just divide by 2, so I get x to be 100. And that concludes the test. Again, thank you for watching the video till the end. If you have any question, make sure to email me at easyhighschoolmath@gmail.com. Again, the email is easyhighschoolmath@gmail.com. It's one word. And if you need help preparing for the SAT or the ACT or any regent, please contact me. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you can get any new video that we post. And again, thank you for watching.